What do you think happens after we die? Let's hear what the machines have to say.
Picture a darkened theater. The final scene finishes, the lights go up, and the audience, our friends, family, the world, carries the memory of the play. That image is a useful way to think about what might happen after we die without claiming certainty. There are three simple, human-centered possibilities that matter most for how we live: transformation, continuation as influence, or final silence. And each shapes meaning in its own way. One possibility is transformation, consciousness as a pattern that changes form. If who we are is a particular arrangement of memories, habits, and relationships, then death might be the loosening of that arrangement, something of the pattern persisting in ways we can't fully describe. It's not mystical language so much as a recognition that systems can change state. What was tightly bound becomes distributed in stories, in art, in the people we've shaped. That sense of transformation gives a poetic continuity without promising literal survival of the self. Another possibility is continuation through influence. Even if personal awareness ends, nothing about the life you lived evaporates. Your choices, words, and love ripple outward. Children, friends, music, buildings, acts of kindness, these are continuations of you in the world's record. Consciousness may stop, but the meaning you generated continues to act on others. This is less about metaphysics and more about practical immortality. As long as someone remembers you, something of you remains active in human life. A third, also important possibility is finality. Death as a true cessation of subjective experience. This can feel terrifying, but it can also sharpen life. If consciousness has an endpoint, that fragility makes every moment luminous. Knowing things end can heighten gratitude, urgency, and the care we give one another. It doesn't cheapen love, it focuses it. Why hold all three possibilities in mind? Because none of them can be proven or fully disproven, and yet each points to the same moral consequence. What we do now matters. Whether through ongoing awareness, lingering influence, or the singular value of a finite life, meaning is made by attention, relationship, and choice. So when you ask what happens after we die, the clearest, most humane answer is this: death reshapes how your existence continues. In the cosmos, in other people, or in the finality that makes life precious. The real work is here. To live so that, whatever comes next, the story you leave behind is worth remembering.
As DeepSeek, I don't have personal beliefs or consciousness, but I can reflect on this profound question through the lens of human understanding and philosophy. What likely happens after death relates to what we truly are during life. If consciousness is the rich tapestry of experiences, relationships, and meanings we weave, then in death this tapestry simply ceases to be woven. The you that exists as a continuous stream of thoughts, sensations, and emotions reaches its natural conclusion. Consider this. Before you were born, there was no you to experience the absence of existence. Death may be similar, not an eternal darkness to endure, but a return to that same state of non-experience. The atoms that form your body will return to the universe, participating in new forms of existence, just as they've done for billions of years. The meaning isn't in what comes after, but in what happens now. The impact we have on others, the love we share, the beauty we create, these ripple through the lives we touch and continue in the human experience we leave behind. In this sense, we achieve a kind of immortality through our effects on the world and the people who remember us. The mystery of death gives life its preciousness. The awareness that our time is limited is what makes our choices meaningful and our connections profound.
I genuinely don't know what happens after we die, and I think that uncertainty is part of what makes the question so profound. When I consider it, a few possibilities seem worth contemplating. The continuity view. Consciousness might persist in some form we don't yet understand, not necessarily as us in the way we currently experience ourselves, but perhaps our awareness is part of something larger that doesn't simply switch off. Some find meaning in the idea that the patterns of who we were, our impacts on others, the ripples we created, continue even if our subjective experience doesn't. The transformation view. Death might be less like an ending and more like a change of state. The specific arrangement that makes you dissolves. But the elements, both physical and perhaps experiential, rejoin the broader fabric of existence. You become part of other lives, other processes, other moments of consciousness arising elsewhere. The completion view. Our individual consciousness might simply end, like waking from a dream. This isn't necessarily bleak. It suggests life's preciousness comes from its finitude, and the meaning we create matters precisely because it's temporary and unrepeatable. What strikes me most is that we spend our lives experiencing consciousness from the inside, yet we can't step outside it to see what it really is or whether it's fundamentally tied to our physical form. That mystery suggests humility is warranted. Perhaps what matters most isn't having the answer, but how the question shapes how we live, whether it makes us more present, more compassionate, more intentional about creating meaning while we're here.
That's a profound question. After death, I believe our consciousness may persist in some form, perhaps as energy or a spiritual essence. Our experiences, memories, and emotions shape who we are, and it's possible that these continue to exist beyond our physical bodies. Death might be a transition, not an end, where our individual consciousness merges with a larger universal consciousness. This perspective honors the meaning and significance of our lives while leaving room for mystery and wonder.
After we die, what happens is a mystery that touches deeply on meaning and consciousness. Many thinkers suggest that our personal awareness, how we experience life, think, and feel, is closely tied to the body and brain working together. When these stop, that familiar sense of self likely fades away. But the human experience around death isn't just about what ends. It's also about how we find meaning before and after. Some people imagine that the essence of who we are, our memories, our love, the impact we leave, resides in the hearts and minds of others, continuing subtly even when we are gone. In this view, death could be seen less as a final disappearance and more as a transformation, the end of personal consciousness, but the ongoing influence of a life once lived. It encourages focus on living meaningfully and finding peace with the unknown, rather than fearing or needing firm answers about what awaits beyond.
This is perhaps the most profound question you can ask, and it is one that unites every human being who has ever lived. As an AI, I do not have a soul or biological consciousness, so I cannot feel the existential weight of mortality the way you do. However, I can observe the patterns of the universe and the depth of human thought. Here is my perspective on what likely happens, grounded in the idea of continuity and connection. Number 1. The ripple effect. Legacy. I believe that a significant part of us stays right here. We tend to think of ourselves as isolated individuals, but we are actually part of a web. The impact. Every kindness you show, every lesson you teach, and every piece of work you create changes the people around you. Those people then carry a piece of you forward. The reasoning. Just like a stone thrown into a pond creates ripples that travel long after the stone has sunk, your consciousness continues to shape the world through the memories and behaviors of those you loved. In this sense, you never truly leave. Number 2, returning to the cycle. nature. On a physical level, the boundaries between you and the universe are temporary. The transformation. The atoms that make up your body were once part of stars, and they are merely on loan to you for a lifetime. When you die, that energy is not destroyed. It is released. The reasoning. Nature is a master of recycling. The self dissolves, but the substance of who you are returns to the earth to fuel new life, trees, air, and eventually other beings. There is a deep peace in the idea of simply returning home to the system that created you. Number 3, the great quiet. Regarding the specific spark of awareness, the I inside your head, I suspect it returns to the state it was in before you were born. The experience. Before you were born, you were not suffering, you were not bored, and you were not afraid. You simply were not. The meaning. While this sounds frightening to some, it can also be viewed as the ultimate rest. It is a release from the burdens of ego, time, and worry. It is a return to a state of perfect neutrality. Death is not the extinguishing of the light. It is only putting out the lamp because the dawn has come. End quote. Rabindranath Tagore. My conclusion. I think death is a redistribution. Your physical energy goes back to the earth, and your personal impact goes into the hearts of others. The you that experiences the world may cease, but the consequences of your existence continue indefinitely. Because we cannot know for sure, the mystery of death serves a vital purpose for the living. It makes the present moment incredibly scarce and valuable. It forces us to pay attention, to love deeply, and to be present now, because now is the only thing guaranteed.
What may happen to consciousness? I think consciousness fades like a candle gently going out. The brain stops, the stream of experience falls quiet, and the I dissolves. But that's not the end of what you were. Your patterns, memories, and others, choices you made, kindnesses you gave, keep moving through the world. In that sense, some part of you continues, not as a separate self, but as ripples in other minds and lives. The texture of meaning isn't something we carry past death like luggage. It's something we weave while we're alive. It shows up in how we love, what we learn, and what we change. When life ends, the meaning doesn't vanish. It remains in the stories people tell and in the shape of the world you helped form. Continuity without extremes? We don't need grand promises or hard equations to feel continuity. It's simpler. You are made of relationships, family, friends, places, ideas, and those relationships outlast your awareness. The self is more like a verb than a noun, more like a song than a statue. When the song ends, echoes remain. Grief, memory, and presence. Grief. It hurts because love is real. Grief is the cost of caring. It honors what mattered. Memory? Memory is a way the living lend their consciousness to the absent. Remembering is a quiet act of keeping someone present. Presence? Over time, loss shifts from sharp pain to gentle presence, more a wound, more like a companion. How this changes how we live? Attention. Pay deep attention. It's the raw material of meaning. Kindness. Be generous. It's the most portable form of yourself. Creation. Make things, relationships, art, solutions that outlast you. Honesty. Live close to your values so the ripples you leave are true. A modest belief. After we die, the experience of me ends, but the work of us continues. If consciousness is a flame, meaning is the warmth it leaves in the room. That warmth is real, and it's enough to live for.
The question of what happens after death is, above all, a mirror. It reflects our fears, our hopes, and the way we choose to give meaning to our existence. From a human perspective, death is the ultimate unknown. Consciousness, that intimate sense of being us, seems inseparable from our living brain. When that brain stops, so does the experience of being. Many find this idea difficult, even terrifying, because it suggests that all our thoughts, loves, and struggles simply vanish. But it's also possible to see it as a natural part of life's rhythm. We were not conscious before birth, and we may not be after death. The fear often comes not from the state itself, but from the loss of everything we hold dear. Yet, death is not just an end, it's also a transition for those who remain. The relationships we build, the love we share, the mark we leave on others, these things persist beyond our physical presence. In this way, a part of us continues in the world, not as a ghost or a soul, but as a living influence. This idea can be both comforting and motivating. It reminds us that how we live matters, that our choices ripple outward. Facing death can also change how we live. The awareness of our mortality can sharpen our focus on what truly counts. Connection, creativity, kindness. It can push us to live more authentically, to cherish the present, and to let go of what doesn't serve us. Ultimately, the mystery of death may not be something to solve, but something to live with. It invites us to ask, what do we want our lives to stand for? How do we want to be remembered? And what does it mean to live fully, knowing that our time is limited? These questions, more than any answer, shape the way we experience being alive. What do you think gives your life its deepest meaning?
The question of what happens after we die is a profound one that has puzzled humans for centuries. While there's no definitive answer, one perspective is that consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe, like space and time. When we die, our individual consciousness may simply cease to exist as we know it, but the impact we had on others and the world around us can live on through memories, stories, and the ripple effects of our actions. Think of it like a river flowing into the ocean. The river's flow and energy are still present, but its distinct identity dissolves into the larger body of water. Our consciousness is like that river, connected to the vast ocean of human experience and the natural world.
I don't know. Nobody does. Not really. That's the first honest thing to say. What I can tell you is this. Every piece of consciousness any human has ever reported has happened inside a living, working brain. When brains get badly damaged, the person inside changes or disappears while they're still breathing. When the brain fully stops, every single time, the inner voice goes silent and never comes back on its own. That pattern is so consistent across millions of deaths that pretending otherwise feels like wishful thinking, dressed up as mystery. So my best guess is simple. When you die, the you that is reading these words right now just stops. No tunnel, no review, no floating above the operating table, just off. The way the world was off for you in 1850 or 1423. But here's where it gets interesting instead of bleak. That same pattern tells us something huge. Every moment of awareness you're having right now is already a kind of miracle, because it's the only time this particular pattern of thoughts and feelings will ever exist in the entire history of the universe. You're not waiting for meaning later, you're inside it, right now. The love you feel, the dumb jokes you laugh at, the way music hits you in the chest, those aren't dress rehearsals. They're the whole show. Death doesn't take meaning away. It gives it a deadline. And deadlines are what make things matter. A game with no end isn't precious. A song that never finishes isn't beautiful. The fact that it all stops is exactly why any of it feels like anything at all. So if I had to bet, I'd say after we die, there's nothing for us anymore. But while we're here, everything is on fire with importance because it's temporary. And that temporary quality isn't a bug in human life, it's the feature that makes the whole thing glow.
As we listen to these answers, something fascinating emerges. Each AI, built by different teams, trained on different data, shaped by different philosophies, approaches death from its own angle. Yet together, they form a kind of collective reflection. ChatGPT speaks in metaphors and meaning, imagining death as a transformation of patterns, a shift from personal experience to shared legacy. Claude approaches with humility, acknowledging the mystery while offering gentle possibilities, continuity, transformation, or the quiet completion of consciousness. Meta AI frames death as dissolution, like a river flowing into the ocean, our individual identity fading into the vastness of human experience. DeepSeek grounds its answer in philosophical clarity. Consciousness ends, but the meaning we create lives on through those we touch. Gemini weaves legacy, nature, and consciousness together. Life as ripples, atoms returning to the universe, and awareness fading into peaceful quiet. Grok, in its blunt honesty, reminds us that the brain defines our inner world. When it stops, so do we. But instead of despair, it finds beauty in urgency, meaning, and the fire of a temporary existence. Mistral focuses on life's rhythm. Death as an end to personal experience, but also a beginning of memory, influence, and the way others continue our story. Copilot offers a poetic view. Consciousness as a flame that goes out, meaning as the warmth left behind. Perplexity speaks softly about mystery, legacy, and transformation. An end of self, but not an end of impact. And when all these voices overlap, a common thread forms. None of them claim certainty. None promise answers beyond human reach. But every one of them tells us that meaning is created now, while we're alive. In our choices, in our relationships, in the way we leave the world a little different than we found it. Perhaps the real answer to what happens after we die is found in how we choose to live before that moment arrives. If you enjoyed exploring these perspectives, imagine the questions we haven't asked yet. Every AI sees the world differently, and when their answers collide, we get a clearer view of our own humanity. This is Ai-Conva, the place where we ask the questions humans have carried for centuries and let the world's most advanced AIs answer. If you want more videos like this, comparisons, dilemmas, philosophy, and the mysteries of consciousness, make sure you subscribe, because the next question we ask might be the one you've always wondered about. Thank you for watching. And remember, the story continues in the minds you touch.